Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is TU Football Update, brought to you by Brahms. Here's Jeremy Poplin.
Welcome in, everyone, to a TU Football Update here from the Griffin Digital Studios. Well, today I'm in Oklahoma City, taking care of a few things down the turnpike, so not our traditional setting, but that's okay, and apologize for the echo, but there's not many places outside of the actual TV studio where you can dive in and do a podcast, and I think they would frown upon me slapping my laptop down there right in front of the desk as they're trying to do a TV broadcast here at News 9 in Oklahoma City. My name is Jeremy Poplin. Bruce Howard is our special guest. Want to remind everyone to hit subscribe and like Oklahoma's Own Sports, the new YouTube page that we've created for you via Griffin Media. All of your favorite teams in one spot. So Tulsa has their own dedicated page, Oklahoma State, their own dedicated page, and then, of course, the Oklahoma Sooners as well. And it's all brought to you by our fine friends at Brahms. Make sure you stop by, check out the wonderful breakfast selections that they have for you. Every morning, stop through, go drive through there in our new location in Coweta, USA. Get a nice cup of coffee as I'm on the way into the office and dropping the kiddo off. Well, it's here. It is Oklahoma State game week as we get set for a Friday night showdown coming up this week. And I thought we'd bring on Bruce, go through a little maybe keys to the game, a little preview of what we've got going on. And you've had the opportunity now, Bruce, to set not only through the press conference with Coach Trey Lamb, I listened to the coach's show on Monday night as well on some of his thoughts. I get the sense, and I think Gundy was the same way, it's easier for them because they've had the off week, right, with Oregon, but to put the bow on that, get that the hell out of everyone's mind. And I think Trey wants to do that with the Navy game, especially with having a short week. You could just kind of sense that a little bit on Monday at the press conference and probably through the coach's show as well.
Yeah, and you know, coaches have this so often, Jeremy, the 24-hour rule, you know, you celebrate or you commiserate for that 24 hours, you review the tape. And in the case of Navy, you review the tape, you might as well throw it in the trash can until the Army game coming up, because there's not a whole lot that you learn from that game in preparation for Oklahoma State. So, yeah, certainly disappointing in terms of what they were able to do defensively after those first three turnovers. But, yeah, it's you definitely want to turn the page, and then we go and we have a Monday coaches show where we regurgitate all of that. That stuff. So sometimes the coach probably doesn't want to talk about a loss, but, you know, we kind of talk about some of the successes and the early success in the game and that sort of stuff.
So I was trying to decide this, and we had a conversation with Holcomb yesterday on an OSU version of a podcast, kind of a blend of Tulsa OSU this week through our work. In terms of a bye week for Oklahoma State, from their perspective, be able to lick their wounds, kind of fix or at least put an emphasis on what has gone wrong so far in their trip up to Oregon. From a Tulsa perspective, though, I've never really viewed that as a positive with OSU having a full week to prepare while Tulsa's coming off of a short week, especially knowing how backed into a corner it seems that OSU football is right now after that loss to Oregon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's it's not the most ideal situation, but it is how the schedule worked out. And, you know, OSU now has 3 Tulsa game tapes to look at, especially on the Tulsa offensive side, because they clearly now have seen Kirk Francis, they've seen Baylor Hayes, they've seen the offense be very successful in the first game, they've seen a little moderate success maybe in the second game. And you know, they moved the ball some against Navy, especially early, but Navy made some adjustments, and Tulsa struggled a little bit with that, you know, in the second half when Navy made their big push. So they've got a lot of tape to work with now. And for Tulsa, you know, you're looking at Oklahoma State tape that is, you know, UT Martin team that they should have been and were better than, and then Oregon. What do you learn from that? You know, so I'm not so certain that Tulsa has the advantage in the video game, if you will, at looking at tape. So, and I think both teams, honestly, Coach Trey has talked about this. You know, he says, I don't know what we're going to have until about week 4, I think. You know, I don't know what type of a team I'm going to have until about week 4. And I'm sure Oklahoma State kind of feels a little bit the same way.
It's funny because, you know, Coach had mentioned during the press conference, he flipped on the Oregon tape, and the first thing that jumps out to him is like, okay, they've got dudes in every single position. I mean, that was one of the programs that spent the most money in the offseason to prepare their roster for coming off of an undefeated season. People forget that. I know they got it handed to them by Ohio State. That was an undefeated team, players all over the field. One of the 5 teams I think that you could put in the conversation right now as a legit national championship contender, and then your quarterback is making his first start in that environment. So Tulsa, looking at that, I mean, it seems, of course you can pick up things on film from there, but more than anything, I just think you look at that and say, that might be one of the last places in college football you would want to have a young quarterback make their first start in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Coach Gundy had talked prior to that ball game about, hey, you know, they obviously put a lot of money into their program, and some people kind of, I don't know, they criticized him as making an excuse ahead of time, and I think that's bogus. I mean, you know, he was just telling the truth.
That was all Lanning,
right? What's that?
That was all Lanning. That like Lanning is a master motivator. He's looking for any little element that he can get. And by the way, we found out just how ruthless some Oregon fans can be because they found our podcast and jumped in there and just started dropping comments left and right. I'm like, our point is like, we've heard Gundy take shots before, right? We've heard it. And that wasn't anywhere even remotely close to a Gundy shot.
No, and you know, so I mean, he took some unneeded whatever heat, you know, over that, and you know, they obviously were stung by what happened a couple of weeks ago, and that's why it's kind of back to the wall situation for OSU, and honestly for Tulsa as well, because I think Tulsa feels they have an opportunity to go to Stillwater and win a football game. Trey Lamb is never going to say that he doesn't think his team can win, and you know, I think it has a chance to be a pretty good game, and I'm not going to call both teams desperate at this point, but I think both teams are kind of itching, you know, to go out there and scratch that itch and get a victory, you know, in this ball game, in what is, you know, historically been kind of a traditional rival, although really Oklahoma State has dominated in the last 27 years. So, but it still is a game that's important. I think it's an important game for Tulsa, and you know, hey, kick it off on Friday, see what happens.
That was my next question in terms of importance. I guess it depends on where your rooting interests lie on this, where you think the most importance comes from. I mean, if you're Oklahoma State, this might be one of the more important, considering environment, everything that happened through the offseason that they've had in a while, in terms of bouncing back and getting the program on track before Big 12 play happens. If you're a Tulsa fan, you still look, I think, at week 2. And I know the coaching staff looks at it this way because Trey has said this. It's like there were plays all over the field. We didn't make enough in order to win the game. And we were driving back after the game, and I had said in the car, you know, this feels like one from New Mexico State in that game. Just visually, you'll look back on in October, November, and just say, ooh, that's got a big what if that's next to it, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But in terms of importance, is it fair to say that it's equal, I think, on both? Because it's not like things get any easier for either team here moving forward with Tulane and then road trips to Memphis and how improved some of the other teams in the conference look. Bruce, it's not easy at all.
Satisfy your sweet tooth with a Brahms old-fashioned banana split. Crafted with a delicious banana, split down the middle and filled with not 1, but 3 scoops of Brahms premium ice cream flavors. To complete this masterpiece, all your favorite toppings are poured on each scoop to bring it all together in a perfect harmony of flavor. Treat yourself to an old-fashioned banana split at Brahms, where every spoonful leaves you wanting more.
No, and we knew that this was going to be a very difficult 4-game stretch for Tulsa, which is why it was disappointing to go to New Mexico State and lose that game. If you're sitting at 2-1 at this point, you feel pretty good about how things have gone, but you're not. You're 1-2. And I think, you know, OSU, they come out of Friday at 2-1. Hey, you know, we've righted the ship, and we've got a chance to, I don't know what their goals are, but you know, you got a reasonable chance maybe to get to that 6 or 7 wins to get a bowl season, that kind of thing, and kind of eliminate that bitter taste of the Oregon game. But on the Tulsa side, you know, if you're able to go to Stillwater and steal a game there, then all of a sudden you're 2-2. And think about how that feels, you know, approaching your second game in the American and a tough game against Tulane, but then again, you're at home. So, I mean, think about the momentum that Tulsa would get if they could get this win and get to 2-2. And, you know, a lot of folks thought they might be 2-2 after the OSU game if you're looking at the schedule at the beginning of the year, but didn't expect the loss at New Mexico State. So if they end up, if you had a choice between winning one of the 2 games, New Mexico State and OSU, you'd choose winning the OSU game and be 2-2 and have all that momentum going into the home game against Tulane. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. All I know is whoever comes out Friday with a win is going to be feeling a whole lot better about themselves.
So we play a game on Sunday nights on the Blitz called The Good, the Bad, and Surprising. Let's play that right now from your perspective. Let's start with what's been good to you from what you've seen from TU.
Yeah, the good part has been the energy, the enthusiasm, the not let go of the rope mentality that this team has had, and that's all directly response to the coaching of Trey Lamb and his staff. As you well know, it's a good young staff. They really do a terrific job. Now things got away from them a little bit in the Navy game, but I think their approach has probably been the good, if you will. To try to break it down as what's been good as far as each area of the game of football, it's been a mixed bag, in really all areas for Tulsa. They get a pretty good performance, offensively in game one, but then not so good in game two. We've got a quarterback shuffle going on, no fault of Kirk Francis because he got hurt. So, what was it? Good, bad, and what? What were the three? Good,
the bad, and the surprising.
In the surprise. Okay. The bad, I don't know if you could say bad necessarily, but a little bad luck for Tulsa with the injury, to Chris Thompson, arguably their best linebacker. He and Ray Coney would be the two best. And then an injury to Kirk Francis, your starting quarterback, and you have an inexperience. So the bad is kind of the bad luck. And the bad luck of, honestly, a holding call on what appeared not to be a holding call against Navy that would have made it 21-7. A non-call on a holding when Navy converted. I mean, there were a couple of calls that Coach Trey Lamb were not happy with, and I don't think he's a referee baiter that much because he generally is quite calm on the sidelines, and he does not want to go crazy on the sidelines because then the players reflect the coach. And so for the most part, he might get mad at the team during the week, but and you're down there on the sideline. They're pretty calm during the game. Now, that said, he was not happy with the officiating, and I'll be honest, I was going to kind of, when I went to the coach's show on Monday, I was going to kind of tiptoe around, not try to get him into trouble by asking about, hey, what about that holding call? You were chewing the ears of the official and all that sort of. And I basically said, my first question is usually kind of a wide berth. Okay, now you've watched the film. What's your thought on the Navy game? And he goes, well, we're going in for a touchdown, and there was a holding call. That was his first comment, and I thought, okay, well, so we danced around it a little bit, but he's quite honest, and that's what that's kind of neat. So a little bit of bad luck. I think they need better play from their wideouts, and I'm talking about the wideouts. The outside receivers have to do a better job of getting open downfield and making plays. And Kirk Francis is a really good deep ball thrower. He'll throw that thing up there a lot of times in the favor of that 50-50 guy, the offensive player. And so it's important for, if he's back in there, if Kirk is playing, that they get the ball downfield and at least be a threat vertically, because I think that's the one piece missing from the offensive game. Really tough to criticize defensively because Navy is Navy. And prior to the final three quarters of the Navy game, Tulsa defense had been pretty good the first two games, and then 3 turnovers in the first quarter against Navy. So hard to say a whole lot bad, about the Tulsa defense. And surprising, maybe special teams have been really good. And I shouldn't say that's surprising, but it is refreshing that you haven't had to worry about that return all the way back. You haven't had to hold your breath when you take the lead and all of a sudden you're kicking off. I think they've been pretty solid in that area, and Angus Davies may end up being one of the better punters in the nation this year. So I think that'd be the good, bad, and surprising.
Can I add in one more to your bad, and it goes along with your bad luck? How about Mekhi Miller stepping out of bounds at New Mexico State? You think that pass is completed. I think at that moment, that's a completely different ball game. And there were 6 or 7 plays, I think, in New Mexico State that you might be able to put into the bad luck category. Tipped ball, by the fingertips on more than one occasion with Booker, who's wide open, kind of sitting down in between the zone defense. Mekhi stepping out of bounds there. Just a few of those I think play right in line with your bad luck, because just looking at something that is strictly bad, maybe not being able to get off the field on third down. I think third down has kind of let them down defensively in the second half against New Mexico State and then against Navy. But I'm like you, some of that I think you throw out the window when it comes to Navy in certain situations. But for the most part, yeah, I don't think that anything's been. We've seen bad before, and I don't know if I would put that in the category of what my version of bad is.
Right, and you mentioned, of course, the third downs. You know, you miss on a 3rd and 2 with Navy, and that's not a big deal because they convert that all the time. They needed to convert those 3rd and 18 and 3rd and 9 against Navy, and they didn't do that in the second half. And you got to get off the field in that situation if you can.
I know it's still a few days out as we get set for Oklahoma State, but you mentioned just kind of the history of this. I like the series. Trey Lamb likes the series. I think Mike Gundy likes the series. Obviously, the athletic directors love this series. It's the reason why it's signed until 2031. I think this is one that should even continue into the future, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it should be one that both sides view favorably, although there have been times in the past that Oklahoma State has not viewed it favorably and have felt that, hey, if we win this game, we're supposed to. If we lose it, it's a disaster and that kind of thing. And I hope they don't feel that. Evidently, they don't feel that way now or at this point, and maybe it's because they've won 10 in a row. But Tulsa last won this series 1998. And I'm dating myself, obviously. I was there. 35-0 Tulsa led in the game. They won 35-20. But that was 1998. This millennium, Tulsa's not won against Oklahoma State. This is the longest winning streak for either team in the series, and these guys are playing for the 77th time on Friday. So, and by the way, if you want a little more history, Tulsa has not won in Stillwater since 1951, and they won that game 35-7. So, I mean, that's there. And Tulsa's had some shots through the years now in Stillwater, not the least of which were the last two times. The last two times in Stillwater was the Zaven Collins game where he got dehydrated in the second half, or that might have been a different story. 16-7 was the final, and then 2 years later, it was 28-23 with Tulsa taking the lead in the second half and then allowing, as we held our breath on special teams plays those days, allowing a special teams play and a kickoff return for a touchdown. Tulsa loses 28-23. So, these last two times in Stillwater have been a battle. In fact, probably there have been more blowouts, it seems like, recently in Tulsa than in Stillwater. So I think it has a chance to be a great game.
Zaven, by the way, with the way that he played in the first half, you can understand how he was dehydrated in the second half with that, because single-handed. If you had played in the second half, Bruce, he might have gone like in the top 5 of the NFL draft in the first round if he had continued to play. And then I think, wasn't there an issue in the 28-23 game where there was a touchdown that was called that ultimately ended up out of bounds? I think there was some of these games start to run together at that time as well. But yeah, it has been close for sure. Final thought from me, in your opinion, on what Tulsa needs to do in the early stages of that game Friday night to go in there and kind of have a tone setter. Now, we thought we had one of those, right, with the 3 turnovers defensively the other night against Navy. But Tulsa needs to really go in and have a good start and not let whatever type of environment they're walking into Friday night overwhelm them.
Yeah, and they've done well in the first quarter. They're 21-10. Tulsa 21 points to 10 for the opposition in the first quarter, so they've done well. As you mentioned, of course, they had a good start against
Which is
Navy.
Refreshing.
And those, what's that? Yeah.
I was going to say that's refreshing compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then the paddles will be popping. The paddles will be thumping, and that's right behind. Right near you. They've been playing audio of the paddles thumping all week long in practice to kind of get people used to it. And it's an atmosphere that you'd like to kind of simmer down a little bit if you can. And the best way to do it is to do what they did against Navy, which is 3 turnovers and a 14-0 lead. Can't expect that every time, but you're right. I think a good early start. Because once that, I don't care what it is in college football anymore. Once that train starts rolling downhill it's awfully hard to stop it. So, if one or the other team gets rolling early, momentum is a tough thing to stop, especially if it's on the OSU side and they're up 21-0 early second quarter. That's going to be hard to stop. So I think, hang in there, stay in the game, make sure that you're in there in the final 15, and then you got a chance to win.
Love the Oklahoma State fans, always very colorful, even with the radio sideline reporter there with their paddles and the things they were said. Last time I was in Stillwater, I think I got called, "Hey fatty, what do you think, you're a coach?" Just continue on and ignore them the entire way through. But I do appreciate their enthusiasm for sure. Hey, Bruce, good stuff, man.
Can't be any worse than the ones at New Mexico State. You got pelted with a lot of verbal abuse, didn't you?
Oh, they said things that made me blush. And if you've ever been around me off of a microphone, like I've got a pretty dark sense of humor and sick sense of humor. They said things that I was like stunned that someone would go to a game and say that. And then the throwing of the beer onto the sidelines where they had multiple students kicked out. I mean, and not so Oklahoma State sidelines are tight, but they're elevated above you, the fans are, by like 10 or 12 feet, it feels like. New Mexico State's, that might have been the closest proximity to the fans I've ever seen since I've been doing this. Like, the stands were maybe 2 feet off of the ground, and they were right there, and they were quick to tell you exactly what they thought of you, your mother, your father, your dog, and you could go through your entire family tree of the things that I heard at New Mexico State. It was bonkers. Absolutely wild. Good memory on your part. All right, thanks, man. I appreciate you. Looking forward to the continued coverage that we'll have on the radio side as well. And I will see you for coordinator meetings.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks, man.
This is Bruce Howard, and thank you for joining us as well. Remember, please hit that like and subscribe button. Make all of our bigwigs here at Griffin very happy when you do so, and me happy as well. We'll see you next time on another TU Update. And thanks again to our sponsor, Brahms, for helping make all of this possible.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio stream. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.